With the recent success of the Resident Evil 4 remake, I wanted to talk about how great remakes have been in this current game market. I know there's always been a lot of pros and cons to remakes, especially the massive con of remakes just being done as an easy cash grab. But I feel like when they're done right, I like to give companies their flowers, and that's something that made me make this video today. Now, before we get into the video itself, I just wanted to apologize for my nasally voice. At the time of this recording, I do have a bit of a cold, so you may still hear that coming through in my voice. So I do apologize for that, but you know, because of timelines and stuff like that, I felt like I still needed to record this video, despite me being sick, because again, I wanted to get it out just as I finished the Resident Evil 4 remake playthrough, which will be going up on the channel on the 15th and on the 16th, so you will see two parts of that go through. Part 1 is probably about like 7 hours long, which is the first half of the game, and then part 2 is about 6 hours long, which is the second half of the game. So I hope you guys enjoy that playthrough coming up. Over the years, the video game industry has seen a rise in the number of remakes and remasters. Some gamers may argue that this trend is nothing but a cash grab by game developers, while others believe that remakes and remasters can be a good thing. In this video essay, I'll be exploring why video game remakes and remasters can be a positive addition to the gaming industry, rather than solely just, a negative light. One of the main reasons why video game remakes and remasters can be a good thing is that they allow developers to bring classic games to a modern audience. Games that were released decades ago may have been groundbreaking at the time they were released, but they can be difficult to play on modern hardware, and also difficult to simply access on modern hardware as well. So I feel like remakes and remasters update these classics with modern graphics, modern gameplay mechanics, making them more accessible to a new generation of gamers. A lot of remakes really just restore the original game to look and feel like how we would have remembered it to be. So being able to see the difference in the remakes of these games is pretty great. As someone who may have played a previous game that's been remade, I feel like it'll fuel that nostalgia even more, while also bringing up the experience to modern standards, especially like we saw with the Mafia remake. And I'm pretty sure if I had to deal with the old Resident Evil camera angles, I would lose my mind right now. Speaking of Resident Evil 4, if they maintained the original camera angles. So again, I myself am very glad for remakes. It just restores that memory while bringing it up to speed to current day controls and gameplay mechanics. Now, the success of the Resident Evil 4 remake is a perfect example of how a remake can breathe new life into a classic game. The original Resident Evil 4 was released in 2005, and while it was considered a masterpiece at that time, it can be difficult to play on modern consoles. The Resident Evil 4 remake, however, takes the original game and updates it with modern graphics and gameplay mechanics, making it more accessible and enjoyable for new and old fans alike. Especially now, we've seen a lot of people who never got to play the original game actually started coming into either the Resident Evil franchise as a whole, or just coming into the Resident Evil 4 experience for the very first time. Another reason why video game remakes and remasters can be a good thing is that they can help preserve gaming history. As technology evolves, old hardware and software becomes obsolete, and classic games can be lost forever. Remakes and remasters allow developers to keep these games alive by updating them for modern hardware and software. This not only ensures that these games are available to new generations of gamers, but also ensures that they're preserved for future generations to enjoy. And again, this is an example of someone who doesn't use, PlayStation Plus, the highest tiers, which got sort of integrated with PS Now, where you're able to access some older games. I tend to just play what I have like physical CDs of, and so remakes again offer that pathway to be able to to experience an old game without necessarily having to go back to the original. For example, if a game is not available on PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass or whatever, like from a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 game, then you'll be able to experience it on this remaster or remake without having to try dig up an old CD, figure out if your PlayStation 2 is still working, or fight with internet connections. For example, if you're gonna stream an old game, those kind of things, it kind of eliminates that because it'll just bring that game to the newer generation. Makes it easily available. It may make changes for better or for worse, but at least it's gonna be accessible to everyone, old gamers, new gamers alike. Now I know there are some gamers who claim something will never be as good as the original, but as someone who missed some of the games the first time around, I'm grateful for remakes and remasters. I genuinely feel like they're a great addition to the current games being released, as they allow, likewise, some people who missed the games, whether you weren't able to access them because of the time, like I was probably too young to play a game, or I couldn't afford a game at that time, all sorts of different reasons. They just basically allow gamers to be able to access them, go back and enjoy them in a better, more updated state. Now, previously in the video, I did mention the Mafia remake as one of my favorite remakes to date. I would say personally, Mafia Definitive Edition and then the Resident Evil 2 remake are probably my two favorite remakes ever. But again, going back to the Mafia remake, that's a great example of how a remake can preserve gaming history. The original Mafia game was released in 2002, and while it was a critical success at the time, it has since become difficult to play on modern hardware. Now, the Mafia remake updated the game with modern graphics and gameplay mechanics, but also preserved the story and characters that made the original game great, and basically just gave everything a facelift whilst maintaining that original look and feel and essence of the game. And I think again, that's another aspect that makes remakes, when they're done right, makes them really good, because you're bringing it up to modern standards, but you're not reinventing the wheel, you're not rewriting history, right? You're still maintaining the essence of a story, the essence of a game, what made that game originally great. Now, going back to my point about introducing to new audiences, right? I think remakes are very good at introducing new audiences to classic games. Many gamers today may not have had the opportunity to play a classic game when they were first released. Remakes and remasters allow these gamers to experience these games for the first time, and in doing so, introduce them to a classic franchise and characters. Another example with The Last of Us remake, partnered up with The Last of Us show. A lot of people who had skipped the game or were a bit skeptical on the game or didn't really find interest in the game have started, getting interested in The Last of Us universe, the games, playing part 2, playing the part 1 remake, all sorts of things, all because they either watched the show or they saw The Last of Us part 1 remake come out and they were like, oh, this is a chance for me to play the game that I missed out on when it originally came out on PlayStation 3. So again, another positive for remakes. Now, if I could go and grab older consoles and play these games that I wasn't able to, some of them when I was growing up, I definitely would. But like we've seen, a lot of these older consoles are either hard to access or hard to just come by simply to find actually working games, servers still running, all sorts of different complications. So again, remakes make it easier so that people don't have to go through those complications. And I know I'm not the only one who's in a similar situation. Games are awesome, and we should be able to enjoy them how we want. And I'm grateful that remasters and remakes exist for the sake of letting players who enjoyed them in the past enjoy them again, and for new players to enjoy them for the very first time. It's a great way to unify gamers and let us all discuss the same games and share stories on our experiences with them, whether it was from the original or from the remake. The success of The Last of Us Part 1 and the Resident Evil 2 remake are perfect examples again of how remakes can introduce a new audience to classic games. Both of these games were released on older hardware and may have been missed by gamers. However, the remakes introduced these games to a new audience of gamers and helped to solidify their place in gaming history. Overall, I think video game remakes and remasters can be a good thing for several different reasons. They allow developers to bring classic games to a modern audience, they preserve gaming history, and they introduce games to a new audience. Introduce classic games, let me actually word that better, to a new audience. Because not every game needs to be remade, right? Realistically. Now, while some may argue that these remakes are simply cash grabs, I think the success of remakes done very well, like Resident Evil 4 remake, the Mafia remake, The Last of Us remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, and several other remakes, it shows that these games can be a positive addition to the gaming industry when done right. And again, I will keep saying the key word being when done right. Because again, I'm someone who's always against companies going for cash grabs and just filling things with microtransactions and just trying. If we take a recent chaotic remake, we can take the GTA trilogy where Rockstar just sort of outsourced that to a smaller indie developer, and that developer had already botched the trilogy release on mobile for Rockstar. So why Rockstar went to them again to now handle the actual release on modern consoles, I don't know. But again, that was botched. That was a cash grab. Rockstar sort of had to then go back and fix everything and redo everything after release. So that's an example where a remake can be really pathetic, where it wasn't really done with, the essence and love of bringing the games to a modern audience. It was just done as a cash grab to be like, oh, we can sell this for $20, $30. Half bake it, people won't really notice, people won't really care, nostalgia will drive sales, that kind of thing. So there is a big asterisk when it comes to remakes and remasters. But like I've said, there are plenty of examples of remakes and remasters that were done right. If studios continue to actually put their passion and their blood, sweat, and tears into these remakes to be able to modernize the game while preserving the essence of what made the original great, I think it's a positive addition to the games industry. Now, to end this video, if you could have any game be remastered or remade, what would you pick? Let me know in the comments below. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay dangerous, stay blessed, and peace out. A lot more video essays and stuff, but in the meantime, right now, my monitor, because I'm used to my camera being on my monitor, but I moved the camera.
Stop right there! Okay. It's not. This is your fault. This is nobody's fault, Henry.
If you're really into some nature shit, on weekends you can always